AITA for telling my girlfriend to have her ex sign the lease after she mocked me? I'm Noah, 35, and at the time this happened, Riley and I had been together just under 3 years. We were close enough that she had a toothbrush at my place, a drawer full of sweatshirts she insisted were basically hers, and a calendar invite for the lease appointment she kept calling our next chapter. I wanted that next chapter. I wanted shared groceries, lazy Sundays, her shoes by the door, and her favorite mug in my cabinet. What I didn't want was to sign myself into a life where her ex got a vote every time I tried to set a boundary. When I first met Riley, the thing I liked most about her was her confidence. She was sharp, funny, quick with a comeback, and she didn't do that thing where someone pretends they're fine and then punishes you for not reading their mind. She said what she meant. At least, that's what I thought. On our 4th date, she told me, "I don't believe in making people guess. If I'm mad, you'll know." I remember laughing and saying, "That sounds dangerous, but fair." And for a while, it was fair. If she didn't like a restaurant, she said so. If she wanted more time together, she asked. If I hurt her feelings, she told me before it became a 3-day silent treatment. I had been in enough relationships where every disagreement felt like a trap, so Riley's directness was refreshing. But there's a line between direct and cruel. I didn't notice when she started crossing it because she never crossed it dramatically. She crossed it one little comment at a time. If I said I didn't love how she joked about my clothes in front of friends, she'd say, "I'm not mean. I'm just not going to baby your feelings." If I asked her not to repeat private things I told her, she'd say, "You're acting like I'm betraying state secrets." If I got quiet after she embarrassed me, she'd sigh and say, "I don't date insecure men, Noah." That line became a key she used on every locked door. At first, I thought she meant she didn't want jealousy. Fine. I didn't want to be jealous either. I didn't want to be the guy checking phones, counting drinks, asking who was at lunch, or hearing a man's name and immediately turning into a probation officer. I'd seen men like that. I hated being around them. So I gave Riley space. Then I gave her more space. Then I kept giving her space, even when it stopped feeling like trust and started feeling like I was training myself to ignore disrespect. The name that kept showing up was Chase. Chase was Riley's ex. They had dated for 2 years before me, broken up, circled back, broken up again, and apparently landed in the category Riley called complicated but mature. When she first mentioned him, she made it sound harmless. "We're not together for a reason," she said. "But I don't erase people from my life just because a relationship ends." That sounded healthy enough. I had an ex or two I could still wish well from a distance. I didn't believe every past relationship had to be treated like a crime scene. Then Chase started appearing in places that didn't make sense. At 11:48 one night, her phone lit up while we were watching a movie. It was face up on the coffee table because she'd been ordering food. The preview read, "Tell Noah I said he's welcome for the playlist." I looked from the phone to Riley. Why does Chase know what playlist we're listening to? She didn't even blink. "Because I told him you liked the song. The song we heard in my car yesterday?" She paused the movie like I was the one making things difficult. Am I not allowed to tell someone about a song? That's not what I asked. It kind of is, she said. You're turning a normal conversation into something weird. I let it drop because, on paper, it did sound small. A playlist. A text. A name. Nothing worth a fight. A few weeks later, I found a small package outside my door addressed to Riley. It was a candle and a card that said, "For the future place. Don't let him pick the couch alone." See? She laughed when she opened it. "Chase sent a housewarming gift," she said. "We haven't signed anything," I said. "I know. It's just sweet. Why does he know we're talking about you moving in?" Riley looked at me the way someone looks at a dog that barked at a vacuum cleaner. Because I'm allowed to talk about my life. I remember standing in my kitchen, holding that stupid candle, feeling ridiculous for being bothered. It was vanilla and cedar, the kind of scent Riley always bought, because she said my place smelled too much like laundry detergent and coffee. I set it on the counter and said, "I'm not telling you not to have a life. I'm asking why your ex is sending gifts for our apartment before we've even made a decision." She folded the card and tucked it into her purse. "He knows moving is a big deal for me. So do I." Then act like it instead of interrogating me. That was how most of our conversations about Chase went. I'd ask a reasonable question. She'd reframe it as insecurity. Then I'd back down because I didn't want to prove her right. One Saturday, She canceled plans with me because Chase was having a rough day. We were supposed to spend the afternoon cleaning out the storage closet in my apartment so she could start bringing some of her things over. Nothing glamorous. Just boxes, old cords, winter jackets, and the kind of relationship work that feels boring but important. Around noon, she texted, "Need to rain check. Chase is spiraling about some family stuff. I'm going to go talk him down." I stared at the message while standing in front of an open closet with a trash bag in my hand. I called her instead of texting. She answered with traffic noise in the background. "Hey, I can't really talk. You're already on your way?" He needed me. I needed you too. We had plans. Noah, don't make me choose between helping someone in a bad place and cleaning a closet. That's not what I'm doing. It's exactly what you're doing. I took a breath. What role is Chase supposed to have in your life once we live together? Her silence was sharper than any answer. Then she said, "The line is where my boyfriend stops acting insecure." I should have pushed harder then. I should have said, "No, that's not an answer." Instead, I looked at the closet, the half-filled trash bag, and the shelf I'd cleared for her, and I just said, "Okay, call me later." She didn't call until almost midnight. When she did, she sounded annoyed that I wasn't more cheerful. "You're still mad," she said. "I'm tired." Same thing with you. That was another one of her habits. If I was hurt, I was mad. If I was quiet, I was punishing her. If I asked for clarity, I was controlling. If I backed off, I was cold. I started wondering if I was the problem because Riley was good at sounding like the emotionally evolved one in the room. She used language that made every boundary sound immature. "You're projecting. You're catastrophizing. You're threatened by my past. You want me to shrink my world. You say trust, but you mean obedience." Some of that language can be real and important, I know that. But in Riley's mouth, it always seemed to land in the same place. I was wrong to be uncomfortable, and she was enlightened for making me uncomfortable. The first person I told everything to was my sister, Paige. I called her after another argument with Riley, this time about a rideshare receipt Riley accidentally forwarded to me when she meant to send a dinner screenshot. The receipt showed she'd gone across town on a night she told me she was going to stay in and decompress. When I asked about it, she said she had met Chase because he needed closure. "You needed to take a rideshare at 10:30 p.m. for closure?" I asked. She snapped back, "You're turning closure into a crime." I didn't know what to say to that without sounding exactly like the jealous boyfriend she said she hated. So I called Paige from my car and told her the whole thing. The texts, the candle, the canceled Saturday, the late-night closure. Paige listened without interrupting. That's how I knew she was taking it seriously, because normally my sister has commentary ready before I finish a sentence. When I stopped talking, she said, "A boundary is not a cage." I leaned back in my seat and closed my eyes. I'm not trying to cage her. I know. Control is what you force on someone else. A boundary is what you do with your own life when something isn't okay. She says I'm insecure. Maybe you are sometimes, Paige said. Most people are. That doesn't mean she gets to use it like a leash. That stuck with me. A few months after that, Riley pushed the move-in conversation harder. She said we had been in limbo long enough, that keeping separate places made us feel like visitors in each other's lives. She said if I saw a future with her, I needed to stop acting like the future was some fragile thing we could postpone forever. And I did see a future. That was the problem. I wasn't looking for an exit. I was looking for reassurance that I wasn't building a home with someone who kept a side door open for her ex. The lease addendum appointment was scheduled for a Friday morning. I already had the apartment, so Riley wasn't signing a brand new lease with me. The office just needed us to submit the addendum request, confirm the extra occupant, update a few terms, pay the administrative fee, and sign the paperwork. Once it was done, Riley would have legal access, her own resident portal, and a much stronger claim to the place we were supposedly making ours. 2 weeks before the appointment, Riley started acting like someone who had already won. She brought over boxes labeled bathroom, winter stuff, books, and kitchen miscellaneous, even though I told her we should wait until after the paperwork. One box split at the corner from bad taping, and a stack of old paperbacks slid across my entryway. "Don't look at me like that," she said, kneeling to shove them back in. "This is what moving looks like." I'm not mad. I just thought we agreed to wait. We agreed to stop being scared. I didn't agree to let boxes become a deadline. She stood up and brushed dust from her jeans. Normal couples get excited about this stuff. Normal couples also talk about things before one person just starts moving in. You always find a way to make joy feel like a negotiation. That one hurt, mostly because part of me believed it. I had been so careful for so long that I didn't know if careful had turned into suspicious. Maybe I had made everything heavy. Maybe Riley was just trying to move us forward, and I was dragging old anxieties behind me. Then Chase sent another text. Riley was in my kitchen pouring coffee, her phone on the counter beside the sugar jar. It lit up with his name. Does he know Friday is happening? The preview said. I didn't touch the phone. I just saw it. You can't unsee something that flashes 2 feet in front of you. I said, why is Chase asking about Friday? Riley grabbed the phone so fast that coffee splashed onto the counter. He's helping me with boxes, she said. I waited for the rest of the sentence. There wasn't one. Why is your ex helping with boxes on lease day? Because he has a truck, and he offered. I have a car. Owen has a truck. Your friend Kayla has an SUV. There were options that didn't involve Chase. She wiped the counter with a paper towel, her movements tight and irritated. It's not that deep. It's our lease appointment. It's my move, too. Exactly. Ours and yours. Not his. Riley threw the wet paper towel into the trash and turned to face me. Do not start this before Friday. Start what? The insecure boyfriend routine. I felt something in me go still. Not calm, exactly. More like I finally heard the click of a lock. I'm asking why your ex needs to be part of a lease decision between us. He's not part of the lease decision. He's helping me with boxes and making sure I'm not being rushed. Rushed? I repeated. You've been pushing for this appointment for months. Because I want us to move forward. But I also want people around me who know me. I know you. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Sometimes I think Chase knows me better under stress. That sentence sat between us like a dropped knife. I said, then maybe you should talk to Chase about moving in. She rolled her eyes. This is exactly what I mean. You can either act like a secure boyfriend today, or we can admit you're not ready for a real woman. It was such a ridiculous thing to say that, for a second, I almost laughed. Instead, I said, don't worry. I'll handle it like an adult. She looked satisfied, like she thought I had given in. I hadn't. Riley went to the bathroom to finish getting ready. Her phone stayed on the kitchen counter, face up. I was rinsing our mugs when it lit up again. Chase, is he still signing the lease? Or did your test finally scare him off? I stood there with water running over my hand. I didn't need a password to understand that sentence. I didn't need to scroll. I didn't need to guess. It was right there on the lock screen, as casual as a weather alert. A test. Not a misunderstanding. Not awkward timing. Not a harmless ex being too involved. It was a test. I turned off the faucet and dried my hands slowly because I knew if Riley walked out and saw my face, she would know I'd seen it. Then we'd have the private blow-up she could screenshot, dissect, and use to make me the unstable one before we even got to the office. I took a single photo of the lock screen with my own phone. I didn't pick up her phone, unlock it, or even touch it. I just documented what was displayed in my kitchen about a lease appointment that required my legal and financial consent. Then I walked out to my car and called Owen. Owen had been my best friend long enough to know when I was calling for advice and when I was calling to be kept from doing something stupid. He answered with, "What happened?" I told him exactly what the preview said. He was quiet for a beat. Then he said, "Do not go fight Chase." I don't want to fight Chase. Good. Also, don't fight Riley in a way that gives her a screenshot of you losing control. I know. No, I mean it. A lease is not the place to prove you're chill. That sentence broke through my anger. I leaned my forehead against the steering wheel. She's going to bring him and make me look crazy if I object. Then don't object. Don't perform. Don't compete. You don't have to win. You just have to not sign. I can cancel it. You haven't signed yet. No. Then call the office. Ask what your options are. Keep it boring. Keep it boring. That became my strategy. After I hung up, I called the leasing office from the car. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. The manager, a woman named Marissa, pulled up the appointment and confirmed it was still on for 10:30. I said, "I need to withdraw the addendum request before it's signed." She paused. "You're the current leaseholder?" "Yes." "And the addendum has not been signed by either party yet?" "Correct." "Then yes, you can withdraw it. I can cancel the request and send an email confirmation." "Please do." Will you still be coming in? Yes, I said. There are some fees I need to settle, and I'd like written confirmation in person. That's fine. A minute later, the email came through. Lease addendum request withdrawn. I saved it, then forwarded it to myself. I don't know if I needed to, but the small act of organizing something made my hand stop shaking. When I went back inside, Riley was putting on earrings in front of the hallway mirror. She didn't look at me. Where did you go? The car. Why? Needed some air. She studied my reflection. Are you going to make things weird today? No. Good, she said. Can you please not make this embarrassing? Just be normal for once. I almost told her I had seen the message. I almost asked how long she had been planning this. I almost said the word test, just to watch her face change. But Owen's voice stayed in my head. Keep it boring. So I said, we should head out. Before we left, I removed the spare key from under the planter outside my door. Riley had started using it without texting first, saying, that's what living together will be like anyway. I had let that slide too. I put the key in my pocket. Then, while Riley walked ahead toward the parking lot, I opened my smart lock app and checked the access settings. Riley had a temporary code I had made for her months earlier. It wasn't tied to a lease or any legal entitlement. I disabled it. Not because I wanted to punish her. Because I finally understood my home had become part of the test. Halfway to the office, Kayla texted me. Kayla was Riley's friend. We weren't close, but we'd spent enough dinners and casual hangouts together that she had my number. Her message came in while Riley was driving separately because she said she needed to pick Chase up along the way. Kayla, hey, I don't want to get in the middle, but did something already happen? Me? What do you mean? Kayla, Riley said you were probably going to make this a thing today. Me? Make what a thing? There was a long pause. Then Kayla sent a screenshot. It was a message Riley had sent her that morning. Riley, if Noah acts controlling today, just back me up. I'm not letting him isolate me from Chase. Once I'm officially moved in, he'll calm down. He won't want to undo everything. I read it twice. Once I'm officially moved in, he'll calm down. Not, he'll understand. Not, we'll work through it. Not, I hope he trusts me. He won't want to undo everything. That was when the lease stopped feeling like a romantic milestone and started feeling like a trap with paperwork. I replied to Kayla. Nothing happened yet. I saw a text from Chase calling today a test. I'm not signing anything. Kayla didn't answer immediately. When she did, her tone had changed. Kayla, she told me you knew Chase was coming. Me? She announced it this morning like it was already decided. Kayla, I'm sorry. I'm going to meet her there because she asked for a ride after, but I'm not backing up a lie. That was all I needed from her. I didn't want Kayla on my side. I just wanted one person in Riley's circle to stop helping her build a false version of the day before it happened. Before I got to the office, I canceled the weekend reservation I had made for us. It was supposed to be a little celebration after the move-in paperwork. 2 nights at a cabin-style rental, nothing flashy, just a quiet place where Riley said we could reset into our new life. The reservation was under my name and paid with my card. I canceled it and saved the confirmation email. Then I opened Venmo and drafted a request for her agreed portion of the expenses. Half the addendum fee we had discussed, half the moving supplies I bought, and the small non-refundable part of the canceled reservation she had insisted on. I didn't send it yet. I just made the list so I wouldn't have to figure it out while angry. By the time I pulled into the leasing office parking lot, I was not calm. I want to be clear about that. People love stories where the person being disrespected becomes ice cold and perfectly detached. That wasn't me. My stomach hurt. My mouth was dry. I kept flexing my hands because they felt numb. I was mourning a future while walking into the room where it was supposed to begin. But I wasn't confused anymore. That mattered. Riley was already there when I arrived. Her car trunk was open, packed with moving boxes. One box had a corner splitting, clothes pushing through the gap. Chase stood beside her, holding a cardboard box against his hip like he belonged there. He was tall, neat, and polished in the way some men are when they know they're being watched. He gave me a small nod. Noah, he said, I'm just here to help. I can see that. Riley stepped between us, smiling too brightly. See? Normal. Everyone can be normal. Kayla stood a few steps away near her SUV, arms crossed, phone in hand. She looked at me, then at Riley, then at Chase. Her expression wasn't friendly, but it was no longer blindly supportive. Riley noticed and frowned. What? Kayla said. Nothing. Inside, the leasing office smelled like printer paper, carpet cleaner, and burnt coffee. There were 2 chairs by the counter, a pin cup, a small bowl of cheap mints, and a framed notice about renter's insurance. Marissa sat behind the desk with our file open on her screen. Good morning, she said carefully. Riley put both hands on the counter as if she was ready to claim the place. We're here for the lease addendum. Marissa glanced at me for half a second. Of course. Chase stood behind Riley with the box. He didn't sit down. He wanted to look supportive without looking involved, which was impossible since he was holding her belongings in a leasing office where my signature was supposed to put her in my home. Marissa printed a receipt for the administrative fee I still had to pay because I had initiated the request. I signed it and paid with my card. Riley watched, impatient. Okay, she said. Can we do the actual paperwork now? Marissa's fingers moved on the keyboard. She didn't answer right away. Riley turned to me. Why are you standing like that? Like what? Like you're waiting for a court date. Chase gave a small laugh through his nose. Not loud. Just enough. Riley caught it and got bolder. She said, Noah, seriously. At least try not to make this about your ego today. I looked at her. She gestured toward Chase. He showed up to help without needing a whole emotional briefing. He never needed instructions on how to be a real partner. There it was. Not private. Not accidental. Not in the heat of the moment. She said it at the counter, in front of the manager, her ex, and Kayla, who had followed us inside and stopped near the doorway. For almost 3 years, I had been scared that if I drew the wrong line, I'd become the insecure boyfriend in Riley's story. Standing there, listening to her compare me to the ex she had invited as a test, I finally understood I was already the villain in her story. I had just been trying to earn a better role from someone who liked me better off balance. So I slid the pen away from me. Then let him sign, I said. Riley laughed because she thought I was bluffing. Chase's smile faded first. Marissa looked at her screen and cleared her throat. Actually, the addendum request was canceled this morning. Riley turned back slowly. What? The current leaseholder withdrew the request before signature, Marissa said, her voice carefully neutral. There is no addendum to sign today. Riley's face changed in pieces. First confusion, then embarrassment, then anger. You canceled it? She asked me. I canceled my consent. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Chase looked at Riley. You told me he knew I was coming. Riley snapped. Not now, Chase. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly Riley. She had brought him there to make a point, and the second he asked a question she couldn't control, he became an inconvenience. Kayla stepped closer. Riley, wait. You called it a test before he even reacted. Riley swung toward her. Are you serious? Kayla held up her phone, but didn't shove it in anyone's face. You asked me to back you up if he acted controlling. That was before anything happened. He is controlling, Riley said, pointing at me. He just canceled my housing. No, I said. I'm controlling my signature, my lease, and my door. You knew I had boxes packed. You packed them before we signed. You let me plan my life around this. I planned around a relationship. You planned a test. Her eyes flashed. So you saw my phone. I saw a lock screen preview in my kitchen. I didn't touch your phone. Chase looked between us. What preview? Riley said, this is private. I looked at Chase. You texted her. Is he still signing the lease, or did your test finally scare him off? The room went quiet. Marissa lowered her eyes to her desk, like she suddenly found her stapler fascinating. Chase set the box down by his feet, slowly, like it had become heavier. Riley whispered, you had no right to see what appeared on your phone? In my kitchen? About my lease. You're twisting it. No, I'm repeating it. Kayla's voice was softer now. Riley, why would you call it a test? Riley looked cornered, and when Riley felt cornered, she reached for the vocabulary that had worked on me for years. Because I needed to know if he was emotionally mature enough to handle my life, she said. I'm allowed to have people. I'm allowed to have a history. I'm allowed to not be owned. I nodded once. You are. That seemed to surprise her. I continued. And I'm allowed not to sign a lease with someone who brings her ex to measure how much humiliation I'll tolerate. Chase gave a quiet, humorless breath. You told me he understood. Riley turned on him. I said he was sensitive. I said he needed reassurance. No, Chase said. You said he knew I was helping. You are helping. I'm not getting dragged into whatever this is. That was the moment I saw Chase clearly, too. He wasn't noble. He had enjoyed being the ex who still mattered, the one Riley came to for closure, advice, and private jokes. He had no problem standing next to her with a box while she compared me to him. But being used as a prop in a public implosion? That was different. His ego liked being chosen. It did not like being exposed as part of a game he hadn't fully understood. Riley grabbed the box handle like she was going to lift it herself, then stopped. It was too heavy. So what am I supposed to do with my stuff? She asked me. Whatever you would have done if you had respected the word no before today. That's cruel. What was today supposed to be? She didn't answer. Marissa finally said, I can give everyone a minute outside. No need, I said. I'm done here. Riley followed me out to the parking lot with Kayla and Chase behind her. The morning had warmed up, and the pavement smelled hot, even though it wasn't noon yet. Riley's trunk was still open. A pillow stuck out from under a stack of plastic hangers. She lowered her voice. You are making this uglier than it had to be. I looked at her packed car, at Chase standing 10 feet away, then back at her. You brought an audience for my reaction. You're getting a boundary instead. I held out my hand. Give me the key. Her hand went to her purse automatically, then stopped. Seriously? Yes. Noah, come on. The key. She pulled out the small key ring. It had my apartment key, a grocery store rewards tag, and a tiny rubber charm Paige had once joked looked like a sad avocado. Riley held it for a second, like the pause itself could change my mind. I kept my hand out. She dropped it into my palm. You're going to regret this, she said. Maybe, I said, but I'm still not signing. That seemed to make her angrier than if I had shouted. I think she wanted a fight because a fight would let her feel victimized. Calm facts gave her nothing to grab onto except what she had done. Chase walked to his own car. Riley called after him. Where are you going? He turned. I came because you said he knew. He did know enough. No, Chase said. He knew after you got caught. Then he got in his car and left. Riley watched him go like she couldn't believe both men had stopped following her script. Kayla didn't comfort her. She just said, I can help you find storage, but I'm not telling people Noah did this out of nowhere. Riley's face twisted. So now you're on his side? I'm on the side of not lying. There was nothing dramatic after that. No screaming in the parking lot. No thunderclap. No movie ending. Just a woman standing beside a packed car, realizing boxes aren't legal rights, plans aren't consent, and calling someone insecure doesn't force their hand forever. I drove home alone. The apartment looked different when I walked in. Not emptier, exactly, because most of Riley's things were still there, but the air felt cleaner in a way that made me sad. Her mug was in the sink. Her half-used lotion was on the bathroom counter. A pair of earrings sat on my nightstand. A sweatshirt was hanging over the back of a chair. For a minute, I let myself feel all of it. Then I locked the door, confirmed the smart lock code was changed, and made a list. Key returned. Addendum canceled. Fee paid. Weekend reservation canceled. Temporary code disabled. Remaining belongings to be picked up by appointment. No unscheduled entry. Shared expenses to be settled in writing. It sounds cold when I list it like that, but I needed cold structure because my emotions weren't cold at all. I wanted to call her. I wanted to demand answers. I wanted to ask if any part of the last 3 years had been real, or if I had always been the safe guy she used while keeping Chase close enough to feel powerful. Instead, I sent her one message. Your remaining items can be picked up Saturday between 10 and 12. If that doesn't work, send another 2-hour window. Please don't come without confirming. She replied immediately. Riley, you're unbelievable. Then, Riley, you're really going to throw away 3 years because I asked you to be mature? Then, Riley, you proved my point. I didn't answer. 5 minutes later. Riley, are you seriously not responding? I put my phone face down and called Owen. He answered, did you sign? No. Good. She brought him. I figured. I canceled before we got there. Good. She said I was controlling. Of course she did. The simplicity of his responses made me laugh once, even though nothing felt funny. Then he said, softer, you okay? I looked around the apartment, at her mug in the sink and the empty spot under the planter where the spare key used to be. No, I said, but I'm clear. That's enough for today. The narrative started that night. I knew it would. Riley had spent years teaching me that she was not careless with language. She knew exactly how to frame things. By 8 p.m., I had 3 texts from mutual acquaintances. Hey man, Riley said you backed out of letting her move in at the last second. Everything okay? Another. Not trying to get involved, but making someone scramble for housing is rough. And one from a guy we knew casually. Bro, I get being uncomfortable with an ex, but canceling her move in the day of is a lot. I didn't post anything. I didn't write a long public rant. I didn't call Riley names. I didn't send people every screenshot like I was running a trial. I responded only to people who contacted me directly. My message was the same each time, slightly adjusted depending on who asked. I didn't abandon a lease. I refused to sign after learning the lease appointment was being used as a test involving Riley's ex. She had not signed, had not legally moved in, and still had her other housing options. I'm not discussing it beyond that. When someone pushed, I sent 2 screenshots. The lock screen preview from Chase. The screenshot from Kayla of Riley saying, once I'm officially moved in, he'll calm down. He won't want to undo everything. That was usually enough. One acquaintance replied, oh, she left that part out. Another said, sorry, I shouldn't have assumed. The casual guy never responded after I sent the screenshots. That was fine. The next morning, Chase left me a voicemail. I didn't answer because I had no interest in a man-to-man conversation about the woman who had put us both in a stupid triangle. But I listened to it. His voice sounded less polished than usual. Hey Noah, it's Chase. I'm not trying to start anything. I just wanted to be clear that Riley told me you knew I was coming and were okay with me helping. She said you were just sensitive about me because of the history, but she made it sound like we were all being adults. I didn't know she was setting you up like that. I'm not getting involved from here. I saved it. Not to use it against him, but because Riley's entire defense was going to be that I imagined things. Evidence helps when someone's favorite weapon is your supposed irrationality. Later that day, Kayla texted me again. Kayla, she's telling people you locked her out of the apartment. Me? She was never on the lease. She returned the key voluntarily at the office. Her belongings are scheduled for pickup. Kayla, I told her she needs to be honest. Me? I appreciate it. I'm not asking you to argue for me. Kayla, I know. I just don't like being used as an audience for a lie. That one line summed up more than she probably meant it to. Riley hadn't only used Chase. She had used Kayla too. She had used anyone who might help her build the version of events where I was controlling before I had even reacted. The weekend pickup was quiet because Paige came over. She showed up with iced coffee and a stack of flattened cardboard boxes from her garage. She walked in, looked around, and said, okay, where are the emotional landmines? I pointed toward the bedroom. Drawer. She nodded like a professional mover. Sweatshirts first. Toothbrush last. We packed Riley's things without making a ceremony out of it. Sweatshirts folded into one box. Books into another. Makeup bag, hair clips, chargers, a pair of shoes from under the bed, a half-empty bottle of shampoo, the earrings from the nightstand. Paige held up the vanilla cedar candle from Chase. This too? I looked at it for a second. Definitely. She put it in the box with more force than necessary. The toothbrush went into the trash. Paige saw me looking at it and said, you're allowed to be sad and still be done. I know. Do you? I sat on the edge of the bed. I keep thinking I should have seen it sooner. You saw it when you were ready to act. That sounds like a greeting card. She shrugged. Some greeting cards are right. At 10:04 on Saturday, Kayla arrived with Riley. Not Chase. Riley didn't come upstairs. I had told her the pickup had to be scheduled and simple, so Paige and I carried the boxes down to the building entrance. Riley stood near Kayla's SUV wearing sunglasses even though it was cloudy. She looked smaller than she had at the leasing office. Not innocent, just less certain. When she saw the boxes, her mouth tightened. You packed everything? Yes. You threw away my toothbrush? Yes. That was petty. It was a toothbrush. Kayla coughed into her hand, probably to hide a reaction. Riley looked past me toward the door. Can we talk inside? No. Seriously? After 3 years. Talk here or email me. Her sunglasses hid her eyes, but her voice shook with anger. You're treating me like I'm dangerous. I'm treating my home like it's mine. It was supposed to be ours. It was about to be. Then you turned the signature into a test. She crossed her arms. You keep saying test, like I was conducting some evil experiment. I just needed to know if you could handle Chase being in my life. You didn't ask that. You staged it. Because every time I brought him up, you got tense. Because every time I brought him up, you made me feel crazy for asking where the line was. There shouldn't have to be a line if you trust me. That's not trust. That's asking for me to disappear. Riley swallowed and looked away. For 1 second, I saw the person I had loved. Not the sharp performance or the smug smile from the leasing office, but the woman who used to fall asleep on my couch with her hand tucked under my arm. I wanted that version to step forward and say, "I hurt you. I'm sorry. I understand why this is over." Instead, she said, "I thought you'd fight for us." I felt something close quietly inside me. "I did," I said. "For months. You just called it insecurity." She flinched. Kayla started loading the boxes into her SUV. Paige stayed by the entrance, close enough to offer support, but far enough not to turn it into a scene. Riley lowered her voice. "The test was stupid." "Yes." I panicked. "No. You planned." Her jaw tightened. "You don't get to act like you were perfect." "I'm not." "You were distant." "I was tired." "You stopped being fun." "I stopped feeling safe." That landed. I could tell by the way her face changed, even behind the sunglasses. She took a breath. "Can we start over?" "No." The answer came out faster than I expected, maybe because my body knew it before my brain did. She stared at me. "Just no. An apology after you face consequences isn't the same as accountability before you do damage." That sounds like something Owen told you. It sounds like something I learned by dating you. Kayla closed the SUV trunk. Riley didn't move. I handed her the last small bag. "This is the rest. If you think I missed anything, email me." She took it, but didn't leave. "So that's it?" she asked. "Yes." "You're choosing this over 3 years?" "I'm choosing not to be tested into a lease." For the first time in the entire situation, she had no comeback ready. After they left, Paige and I went upstairs. The apartment had that strange echo that comes after you remove someone's things from a space. Not a literal echo, but a visual one. The empty drawer. The empty hook by the door. The empty spot in the shower where her shampoo had been. Paige threw herself onto the couch and said, "I hated that candle." "I know. It smelled like a man trying to prove he reads labels." I laughed for real that time. Then I opened my calendar and deleted the reminder titled Lease Addendum. It was still sitting there like the future hadn't been canceled. The little square vanished from Friday, and I felt both relief and grief hit me at the same time. Riley tried again 3 days later. She called twice. I let both go to voicemail. Then she texted, "Riley, can you please answer like an adult?" I replied, "You can say what you need to by text." She called again. I didn't answer. A minute later, a voicemail appeared. I listened just to know if I needed to respond. Her voice was uneven. "Noah, I know you think I'm this awful person right now, but I really didn't think you'd cancel everything. I thought you'd get mad, then we'd talk. I thought you'd fight for us. Chase wasn't supposed to be some big betrayal. I just needed to know if you could handle my life. I know the test was stupid. I know I embarrassed you. But 3 years has to count for something. Please call me." 3 years did count for something. That was the part she still didn't get. It counted enough that I didn't want to spend year 4 trying to pass exams I never agreed to take. I texted back once. "I did fight for us. I asked for boundaries, honesty, and respect. You called those things insecurity. I'm not continuing this relationship." She replied, "You're going to regret being this cold." I didn't answer. Then, "You're not as secure as you think." I almost typed back, "Maybe not." Because it was true. I wasn't some flawless, untouchable man with perfect confidence. I had doubts. I had fear. I had a drawer that still smelled faintly of her perfume. I had to stop myself from checking if Chase was still in her orbit. I had to remind myself not to measure my worth by how quickly or slowly she replaced me. But security isn't the absence of pain. So I didn't send anything. Over the next few weeks, things settled in the boring way real consequences usually do. Riley found a storage unit. Kayla stopped being her messenger. Chase disappeared from the situation entirely, which told me plenty about how deep his concern really went. The weekend reservation refund hit my card, minus the non-refundable fee. Riley ignored the Venmo request for 8 days, then paid half with the note, "Since you're keeping score." I didn't reply. A mutual acquaintance told me Riley was saying I had weaponized housing. I told him, "She wasn't on the lease, and she hadn't moved in. I refused to sign after she involved her ex as a test. That's all I'm going to say. He said, fair. That became my favorite word for a while. Fair. Not dramatic. Not vengeful. Not satisfying in a movie way. Just fair. About a month later, Riley emailed me. The subject line was closure, because of course it was. She wrote that she had been thinking, that she understood she had mishandled things, that she never meant to make me feel second place, that Chase represented a part of her life she hadn't properly let go of, and that she wished I had told her more clearly how much it all hurt. That last part almost got to me. Not emotionally. Angrily. I had told her. In kitchens. In cars. By the door. Over cold coffee. While clearing closet space. After late-night texts. After canceled plans. I had told her in every way a person can without shouting. She just preferred the version where I had failed to communicate because that version required less accountability from her. I wrote back the next morning. Riley, I did tell you. Several times. I'm not interested in continuing contact except for unresolved practical matters. I hope you take care of yourself. That was it. She didn't respond. I won't pretend I bounced back instantly. For a while, every quiet night in the apartment felt like an accusation. I'd cook dinner and make too much, used to cooking for two. I'd reach for 2 mugs in the morning. I'd hear a notification and feel that old, sick drop in my stomach, waiting for another argument dressed up as a conversation about maturity. But there was also peace. Nobody laughed at me for having a boundary. Nobody called my discomfort a weakness. Nobody turned my home into leverage. One night, maybe 6 weeks after the leasing office, Owen came over with takeout. We sat on the floor because I had finally decided to move the couch Riley hated and hadn't picked out a new one yet. He looked around and said, "Place feels different." Empty. No. Yours. I didn't answer right away. The words settled around me. Mine. Not in a bitter way. Not in a triumphant way. Just true. The lease stayed in my name. The door code stayed changed. The drawer that used to hold Riley's sweatshirts eventually held spare blankets. The calendar stopped reminding me of a future that would have cost more than rent. I never got some grand apology from Riley. Kayla once told me Riley still thinks I overreacted, but she also stopped telling people I made her homeless. Chase, from what little I heard, moved on to being important in someone else's messages. That suited him. I don't hate Riley. I don't think she woke up every day plotting to ruin me. I think she liked feeling wanted by 2 men and called it complexity. I think she liked having me stable and Chase exciting. I think she learned that certain words could make me doubt myself, and once she saw they worked, she kept using them. That doesn't make her a monster. It also doesn't make her safe. The biggest mistake I made was confusing patience with maturity. I thought if I stayed calm enough, reasonable enough, and open enough, Riley would eventually stop treating basic respect like a threat. But some people don't experience your restraint as kindness. They experience it as permission. The day at the leasing office, Riley told me to prove I was secure. So I did the most secure thing I could. I stopped auditioning for my own relationship. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.